Hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is writer-director John Magary, who made one of the best films I saw last year, The Mend, a stressed-out comedy starring Josh Lucas and Stephen Plunkett as two adult brothers who have a decidedly toxic effect on one another. It didn't get much of a theatrical release. In Toronto, it played a single week in a smallish room at the Carlton Cinemas, but it's available on iTunes and on various VOD platforms, and it's great. John picked Wolf, Mike Nichols' 1994 attempt to recontextualize the classic werewolf story for contemporary audiences by casting Jack Nicholson as a middle-aged book editor who finds his alpha male side coming out after an encounter with a mysterious animal on a lonely Vermont road. It doesn't work exactly, but the collision of Nichols' intentions with the ancient horror tropes underpinning the story, along with the performances of Nicholson, Michelle Pfeiffer, James Spader, and Christopher Plummer, is occasionally fascinating. If you've seen it, you know. If you haven't, hang on. This is Someone Else's Movie.
It's just one of those movies that maybe it's because of the timing of when I saw it, and then the frequency with which I saw it after. Like, just, you know, I think it was on cable, and I also, for whatever reason, had a VHS tape of it that I brought to college. Okay. And it was one of my, I think I had 5 VHS tapes. That Beetlejuice, Stripes, you know, just like, and I went to college in like a sort of a kind of dead town, and so that was kind of you know, we would watch these tapes a lot. We would watch Fargo over and over and over again, and
so it became a totem.
Yeah. But Wolf was always sort of a private thing. I never shared it with my suite mates or anything. I actually just recently mentioned to Minna, my partner and the producer of The Mend, that we were going to talk about Wolf. And she's like, what? Wolf? She's like, I haven't even seen that. You like that movie? And yeah, I don't know why. It always pops up in my head as like a movie that's like, you know, this is a good movie and it was never given a fair shake. And it's kind of ridiculous, but also... I just watched it. You know, I just watched it again 2 days ago, and it works.
Yeah, I don't think I'd seen it since maybe the DVD release.
Yeah,
the last time anything new was added to it. So I went back. And I've got the Blu-ray, and it's the weirdest of the. There was this. I mean, you know, Wolf was supposedly, ostensibly, it was the result of the horror boom that Sony thought they'd sparked when they released Bram Stoker's Dracula. So immediately, it's like we need a Frankenstein movie and a Wolfman movie. And Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The Branagh film was the result there. And then you've got, well, let's get Mike Nichols to do our Wolfman movie.
Let's get Mike Nichols, and let's have the lead character be a book editor. Mm-hmm. Which is so... And I think that's one of the... I think when I try to pinpoint, like, why I'm so attracted to the movie, I think when I saw it, it had a kind of untouchable sophistication or some kind of... It just felt very sophisticated to me.
Yeah.
And I think now it still just only feels sophisticated. I don't think it is very sophisticated.
Yeah. No,
but like there's like it's got all these kind of characters, and these characters who you know, wear blazers and edit books and
everything has oak.
Everything has oak and everything. Yeah, everything's dark wood, very 90s, very like kind of like deep saturated colors.
There's veneers.
Yeah, veneers. Very baggy jackets.
That dinner party at the beginning. At Plummer's estate, where everybody's sitting in tables with all these candles. It's just like it's the
and Nichols does that kind of track in where it's like, you know, he'll track in through people and they'll be talking and then they'll kind of clearly like kind of
move out of the way of the track.
Move out of the way of the track as they move towards, you know, Nicholson or Plummer or something, and you know you can overhear their conversation. It's very stagey. It's very theatrical. It's very like. Like, I think at one point they're like, oh, yeah, they talk about Christopher Plummer's character. Oh, he's so charming, and it just sounds so false. Like it's so like stagey, like the line you'd give to a member of the chorus in a musical.
Yeah, I was fascinated by the artifice because part of it feels like the logical endpoint of what if this milquetoast middle-aged guy became a werewolf? Like, what would that...
Yeah.
How would that play, and what would it be like in the real world? And then suddenly you realize the real world doesn't factor in here at all. It's all so... it's like real world adjacent. It's a
right.
You know what it is? It's the movie that Gene Hackman's character is making in Postcards from the Edge. It's like that slightly forced fake.
Yeah.
But still, like all the emotions are valid and weirdly compelling. And there is something to Wolf that I was really surprised to find still works.
Yeah, well, I think I think that the center of it is the performances, and what really leaps out to me is James Spader. Mm-hmm. Like the most perfectly written James Spader role.
Yeah,
just perfect because he's the kind of false modesty and false sympathy that he's expressing, even in the most like awkward, weird moments. When he's found out he lost the job that he's been pushing for.
Right.
Even in those moments, he's saying like, oh, actually, I think I'm actually relieved in a way. I'm relieved in a sense. It's just like it's pretty perfect, and Spader's so great, and just takes it to this like by the end he's just such a. I mean he's a wolf too, but he's such a creep, just such a disgusting he really goes there.
He's that perfect. Yeah, it's that perfect moment of like it's not even self-awareness, but the actor's joy in the performance is radiating.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Even where Nicholson is playing a version of genuine emotion, and Spader's just like. Let's piss on each other. Let's literally do this.
Yeah.
Let's just go for it.
But what you're talking about in terms of like the reality adjacent thing is really interesting because I don't know. I didn't do any research, but I don't.
But you've lived with the film.
But I've lived with it's really a part of me, so I feel like research would be no.
It is amazing what
they clearly didn't shoot. I mean, the amount of footage that was actually shot in New York seems small. That publishing house is a famous building in L.A.
Yeah, I think most of it. I mean, there's a shot of him going to work, and it's where the Best Buy is now on Union Square. Construction is there.
It's what's funny about that shot is that that always stuck out to me because I always thought it's a choice. It's one of the movie's like a bunch of like kind of minor choices, but they're still choices. Mm-hmm. And Mike Nichols isn't going to make a movie where he doesn't make choices. So it's interesting. It's kind of fascinating to watch. Like, oh, why? It's like this kind of grumpy, cynical old man approach to New York in that shot. You have him walking to work, and it's through a bunch of construction, and everything's being uprooted, and everything in his life is being uprooted, and everything's the old guard is moving out of the way and stuff.
Yeah,
and it's just such a funny, like, kind of blunt, but very, in some ways also very, very subtle way of expressing, like, a character's inner
I was trying to
turmoil.
I was trying to figure out, are they trying to tell me that the wild is encroaching on New York City? Is that the point? Like, there's open space in Manhattan, which you never see. Is that part of it?
Well, they do that with Central Park a lot. I mean,
sure,
that is,
but that's where you do it.
Yeah,
The idea of doing it below
to me, it just seems like upheaval. I mean, I can only assume it's just,
it didn't make sense to me either, because and also everybody knows the heart of New York's publishing empire is on 14th Street.
yeah, of course.
It's just like, I'm sorry, I should point out, we are recording this episode in New York, and I feel more in-jokey than usual about, it's that Andy...
All you non-New Yorkers are just going to have to catch up.
Google Union Square.
Yeah, man.
You'll get it.
Yeah.
Andy Daly has this fantastic bit about an LA comedian touring. And it's on his album 9 Sweaters, and it's just this incredible performance of like all of his jokes are about. So I'm trying to figure out how I can tell my wife that it's over, and I just I can't get the words out. It's like when you're stuck on the 410. And impossible local jokes that just don't read. But the version of New York that's presented in this film is that sort of patrician, old-moneyed, old world. Everybody has power except the people who need it. Yeah. And Plummer he just embodies it so beautifully.
Yeah. And he brings a kind of an old-fashioned notion of old money too. I mean, he's Plummer's Canadian, isn't he? Mm-hmm. But he's more or less British too.
People think he's European.
Yeah.
He probably really is.
He has this kind of urbane sense. It's like a. Yeah, it's a view of the powerful as still essentially refined, which
dukes and things.
If Mike Nichols were alive now and he was going to make that movie again, I don't know if he would portray the powerful in that way. Yeah. I guess he's kind of Bloombergian.
He was old enough too, though. Nichols had grown up in that sort of environment.
Oh yeah,
that sort of environment. So
you
get the sense that was what he knew.
Yeah.
I don't think he's mocking it. I think he's trying to build the best version of it.
Yeah.
And still put people at each other's throats for their favors. I mean, it does feel like you're in a Game of Thrones castle or something in the one scene where everybody.
And it gives him a good excuse to bring in some horses, which factor in way more throughout the movie than you'd expect them to.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing of New York City is seething with wildlife is not something I would have thought of.
Yeah.
Like now there'd be a scene where he runs around hunting raccoons and squirrels.
Right. I think that's another thing that always appealed to me about the movie is that it was, I grew up in Texas, and actually I should say I saw the movie first with my brother. Who was involved in a lot of my formative movie-going experiences when I was visiting him down at UT in Austin. And I think that was another thing. That was another part of it that it made it sort of weirdly special. I don't know why. I remember something about the kind of vindictiveness of the narrative that, like, weirdly spoke to me. Maybe it was my inner child misogynist or something. Just like this... you could say that the text of the movie or whatever is kind of inherently misogynist, where it's a kind of weird wish fulfillment where a guy's wife cheats on her and then she's pretty quickly viciously murdered.
Yeah, it's in there, definitely.
And I think that kind of like mixture of sophistication and genteel trappings mixed with, kind of petty, bloody revenge fantasies. I think that I don't think I'd ever seen anything like that before, and it still kind of works for me.
Yeah, there's that weird tension between what a horror movie is supposed to do, and what like kind of genteel ideas Nichols wants to explore.
Yeah.
And I thought about this time watching it. I really thought about The Fly as the template, where someone is or the Cronenberg Fly, where someone is becoming something else.
Yeah.
And it's actually changing him.
Yeah.
In addition to his body, his soul, his mind are all up for grabs.
Yeah.
But Nicholson, being Nicholson, can't help but enjoy it. Like there's no fear in the transformation in Wolf, as opposed to, say, the Benicio del Toro Wolfman, where he's just howling about how horrible and tormented he is. He's doing like the full-on Chaney.
Right.
Kill me. This is the worst thing ever. Nicholson kind of gets everything he wants.
Well, that's kind of isn't that the better movie?
Yeah, the weird.
I mean, you don't want to see a movie about a guy who's it's like you don't want to see a movie about a guy who's turning into a wolf, and turning into a wolf is essentially cancer. You want to. I mean,
you want him to enjoy it a bit.
Yeah, I mean, like the Dr. Alizaeus, the old Indian man in old Indian makeup, who he says it's like it feels great to be a wolf, doesn't it? And I think that's part of what drives the movie and keeps you in it. I mean, it keeps it enjoyable because you're like, this. There's a downside to this, which is you wake up in the middle of the night and you go out and you prowl the streets and you end up maybe murdering someone, and then you win, and the next morning you don't know what happened. The upside is, you can sleep for long bits of time. You have lots of energy and you can hear a lot of shit.
You're better at your job now.
That was something that actually I thought was funny too, is how not as successful. I think that, trying to express his heightened powers as a wolfman.
Yeah.
They're never that impressive. Yeah. It's always like he can hear someone down the hall, or he, at one point he can hear Michelle Pfeiffer drying her hair with a towel, and it's just like, and she's on the phone, and she just reacts like, I can't believe you heard that. How could you hear that? And he's like, well, this is one of my new powers. But I'm like, well, couldn't a lot of people hear that?
Yeah.
If you're talking to someone on the phone and they're drying their hair. It's like a funny, like they tried to, and you can see those like little screenplay beats where they have to bring, to bring back.
Remember how this is a thing?
Yeah.
And the
ooh, it's so cool.
Yeah, that's it. The echoing of the it's just like, there is a better way to do it, but one, I almost, what was it? There's a movie where, I guess one example is, like, I'm thinking about what Shyamalan did in Unbreakable, where, Willis has all these powers, but he's not very bright, and he's just never really investigated them. Which is such a terrific idea.
Yeah.
Like that one scene where, you've never actually ever had a cold, have you? You've never been sick. I I assume, because, if you're a kid and you're not sick, you just assume that's how it is, and maybe it's weird or you're lucky. But I love the psychological layering that Shyamalan pulls off there, where it's like, yeah, these things have always just been. I can lift stuff if I try. I just almost never try.
Yeah.
And then to have Nicholson be someone who kind of does get this incredible potential and be really petty and self-serving with it.
And also the way the movie's framed, it's like the first one of the first expressions of his newfound power is that he can read really fast.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Without glasses.
Because everyone...
you're just like, who thought this all up?
But it's a middle-aged guy. It's a middle-aged writer going, it would be really awesome if I didn't have to wear the bifocals anymore.
It's a mundane detail, and it's very true in that way. You know, it's just like,
and simultaneously,
if you have power, you can really whip through those manuscript pages.
Yeah, and at the same time, you're thinking, is that what wolves are known for? Their high reading speed?
Exactly. I don't think I knew that at all.
Yeah.
It's like, so they can hear really well, they smell, well, that makes sense.
And they speed read.
And they really can't resist eating beef whenever they're around.
That is kind of amazing. That's the early iZombie joke, right? Where it's just like, we don't really know how this would fit, but when somebody said, it would be great right here if you just eat that.
Yeah.
And the actor's up for it, so you shoot it, you figure it out later. Oh no,
I'm sure that's one of the things that's easy to get Nicholson to do is chomp on some roast beef in the middle of a shot.
They're hungry all the time, Jack. Trust us on this. They're hungry all the time.
Yeah, I was thinking though, like one of the other things that I think always appealed to me about the movie is that it's a very thoroughly kind of northeastern movie. It starts in Vermont. Yeah. It starts in the snow. All these things were kind of foreign to me a little bit, but not. My dad's from Connecticut, my mom's from Michigan, not Northeast. But I think there was all these things I was adjacent to in a way, and I think I felt that was sort of. Well, if always found them appealing in a way, and
if you're in Texas, I guess you are you're culturally removed from that kind of Christmas tradition, that kind of winter tradition. Those are things you'd only have seen in movies.
Yeah. And certainly, and removed from horses, removed from book editing, it was all kind of foreign but approachable at the same time.
Yeah,
living in when he moves into a hotel. That to me is still that hotel doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. But that to me is still kind of a fascinating, weirdly old school detail.
That Eloise fantasy.
Yeah.
Right?
I moved into the Mayflower.
This used to be the way things were.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah. When your wife cheats on you, you can always move into a hotel.
As opposed to, and you've just made a movie about the realities of that, which is that you just, no, I'm going to stay with my brother and ruin this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would be the funny version of Wolf, was where she cheats on him and he doesn't have enough money to go anywhere, so they're still just sort of stuck in the same apartment.
You a werewolf yet? No.
He's sitting in the living room listening to her have sex with James Spader. Oh, man.
I don't want to, I kind of... It would work. It could. It
would work.
That work.
Mike Nichols would make it work.
There will be a mumblecore werewolf. There was one, right? Didn't Swanberg make Silver Bullets?
Oh yeah, I didn't know that. I've never seen it. I didn't know it was about wolves.
It's sort of it's a roundabout werewolf.
Oh, gotcha.
It's kind of in there, and it's not a bad. It's an
Is
interesting
there
take.
Hair?
Not really.
There's hair.
Illusions.
What do you think of the movie? Honestly,
I find it really interesting because there's that period of Nichols' work where he's not in the wilderness exactly, but you get the sense that he just kind of went away for a while. He was working, but he was doing stuff like, there's Primary Colors, which is a broad satire because it needs to be, and then there's Wolf, and there's the other one I always think about is What Planet Are You From, the Gary Shanley movie.
Oh God, which I've never seen.
It's terrible. It's just terrible. Yeah. The concept doesn't even it's basically it trips, falls, smashes its teeth on the curb, and tries to get up and say, "I'm so funny," and it's just horrible.
Oh man.
The Ben Kingsley is the concept is that Chandling is an alien who's sent to Earth to procreate. And can't because he's hapless, he's useless at helpless at picking up women. So there are two good ideas in it. One is that a middle-aged man would have no idea how to be a middle-aged man, which is sort of interesting. And the other is that Annette Bening he's paired with Annette Bening almost immediately, and she just doesn't put up with any of it. So the idea that she falls in love with him is inherently awful and stupid because Annette Bening has already established herself as too smart to fall for this. But she's doing her best to go along with it, and it's just this awful, protracted romantic comedy that isn't funny and isn't romantic. But and Ben Kingsley is his alien contact, his overlord, his Orson in the Mork and Mindy universe. And the only time they can see each other because of some planetary anomaly is that Kingsley can manifest in airplane bathrooms, like in flight.
What?
Something I can't even remember what the reasoning, like, it doesn't make sense when you hear it, but you can sort of see how they arrived at that. It's like this really bizarre, they're bouncing him off the clouds or something. He's not really there. It's an image.
So is there oh my God. So there are scenes where
he has to fly.
He has to get into like onto an airplane
and fly and talk to Ben Kingsley in the bathroom. And then Kingsley removes himself they end the conversation, they terminate the contact by flushing the toilet. So Ben Kingsley is repeatedly flushed down a toilet in this movie. And someone thought this was hysterical. And it
did Gary Shandling write it?
I believe he at least co-wrote it, yeah.
Wow.
But I saw that with an audience, like 500 people at a sneak, and dead silence.
The combination of Gary Shandling and Mike Nichols is interesting.
You would think it would work, right?
Yeah, you can see him directing an episode of Larry Sanders or something, totally, but...
No, just dead on the page.
And then he did Birdcage 2 years,
I
2 years after Wolf, right?
With that, right? Or no, What Planet Were You From was after that.
Was after that, but Birdcage is after Wolf.
Yeah, Wolf and the other one.
Primary Colors.
Primary Colors. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was Postcards, something I can't remember. Primary Colors and Wolf, Birdcage, something else, What Planet Are You From, and then Closer.
Okay.
I think, or it was Vice. I should really look that up. I'm just going to go grab the phone.
I saw that when I was on Broadway. Closer.
Oh yeah, how was it live?
Good. I remember one of the actors was not... Sharon Hines was in it, actually. It was a good cast.
Oh.
Before this was years ago. This was like 2000 or something.
It always amazed me that was written by one of the Alan Partridge writers. Patrick Martin.
Oh, right.
Start with the
Was he Alan Partridge before or after he wrote it?
He was on Partridge before. Yeah. Because that thing goes back to the 90s.
That's in the 90s, right?
Mike Nichols.
That's another text that has a kind of vicious wish fulfillment.
Closer?
In a way. I mean, it's all about just people confessing things that they shouldn't confess and being... Well, maybe they should confess it, but they confess it in the most kind of blunt...
Yeah. Okay, I completely botched the order. So, Postcards is 90. Regarding Henry, which I always forget was his, in 91. Then Wolf in 94. Birdcage in 96. Primary Colors in 98.
98.
I thought it was earlier than that, but of course it's about the period that's earlier. What Planet Are You From in 2000. That
is crazy, because who would think that's the most recent? It's so thoroughly forgotten.
Yeah, I was like, well, it had to be before 9/11 because you couldn't get away with the jokes. But only
they got him right before 9/11.
Wit in 2001, which is a really great adaptation of that play.
Oh, and I haven't seen it.
HBO. It's really good. So I'm sure that's on HBO Go. It's worth seeing. Angels in America, Closer, and Charlie Wilson's War, and that was it.
Charlie Wilson's War is pretty good too.
Yeah. And it also exists in that Wolfiverse where everything is a little heightened and a little unreal.
I mean, I think it's not too different from the Hitchcockiverse. I mean, it's just like I don't think Nichols can shoot in real locations. Yeah. I mean, I don't think he prefers to. I think he likes a certain amount of control. Whenever they go to Laura Alden's house in Wolf, it's very clearly a set. Yeah. A nice set too. I mean, Bo Welch is the production designer. It's like it's a beautiful, elaborate set, but it's very, clearly, you can tell those plants are not real. Yeah. Which I think was also, not to keep going back into my personal biographical, relationship to the movie.
That is what the show is for.
Okay, yeah, but it is, I think I knew enough, because 94, I was 16 or 17.
Okay.
So I had definitely seen movies by then. I'd seen Citizen Kane by then. I'd seen Taxi Driver. I'd seen a lot of great movies by then, and knew that was something I loved. And I could sense watching Wolf that I knew about Mike Nichols. I think I'd probably seen Working Girl. I'd maybe seen.
Would you have seen The Graduate by then?
I think I might have seen The Graduate by then.
Yeah. I mean, I know I was about that age when I saw The Graduate, and I was definitely too young. I should have, it's one of those things.
Waited.
It clarifies after you're 20. I think. I saw
and then it's
16.
And then it curdles when you're in your 30s. I just watched it recently. I was like,
oh no, it's a different movie every time.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I really didn't like it last time I watched it.
It's much more.
I just thought it was.
The older you get, the more aware you are of how abusive it is. Like, to everyone.
Well, he's a little shit.
Yeah, no, everybody's awful.
Yeah, everybody's awful, which is fine, but it doesn't. It just makes Catherine Ross's character just doesn't make any sense by the end. And actually, there's just not enough story there in a weird way.
Yeah.
Like, it's really kind of grasping. You can see why it was, powerful, and why it was it really touched a nerve, because just the way it's made. Mm-hmm. It's purely because of Mike Nichols, just his ideas with music, which are still very innovative, and the kind of wry approach to society and kind of party culture and stuff. But
they're such awful people.
They're such awful people, and it just seemed like a lot of ideas, and sometimes you see it. Actually, I just saw The Revenant. This is kind of how I felt about that. You see a lot, you can see a lot of ideas within a script, and the script is just trying to get to those ideas the whole time.
Yeah.
But to get there, it just feels kind of inorganic, or weirdly like filler.
Yeah.
I feel like The Revenant has filler, which is weird.
It does. It absolutely does.
Which is strange.
The argument I was making about The Revenant, I saw it there were 40 people in the theater, and it's a 600 seat big 80X super room, and it was so, to me, obnoxious in its need to show you suffering, which is what Inarritu does, right? That's his thing. But I just, at the end of it was Larry Fessenden could make this movie. It would be 90 minutes long.
Yeah.
It would cost $10 million, and it would be so much better.
Yeah. Cost $2 million.
You'd have a real better. Yeah, that's true. Well, you'd have a nice catering.
Yeah, it's true.
For once, let the man have sandwiches.
Sort of a Jack Fisk here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I try. Revenant. I was very much. I don't know if you've been following that on Twitter at all or anything, but I've been gunning to like it.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite like it because I still kind of defend Birdman.
Well, there's stuff about Birdman that I admire, but I just think in the end, I keep coming back to the need to show off is so much more important than the need to tell a story. What is this? What is the point of Amy Ryan and Andrea Riseborough almost kissing? They almost sort of everybody forgets that's in there because
I forgot that was in there.
Yeah, it lifts right out because it makes no fucking sense. But it's you know what this scene needs.
But if you got a one long take, you gotta jam stuff in there. Sometimes it's not gonna make sense.
Yeah. But with The Revenant, it's just but it just felt so masturbatory to me. It just felt like it wouldn't stop. And then at the end...
Speaking of which, why there was no... I'm surprised there were no masturbation scenes. Just think about it, Leo's out there alone.
He's got nothing else going on.
I'm surprised Inarritu did. Maybe they did go there. They just cut it out.
Leo, this is how you stay warm. This will keep you warm tonight. This is
Leo
how
just
works.
glares at him like, oh, all right.
Yeah. Maybe that's the shot at the end where he looks into the camera. Now!
He starts blinking off.
I'm not doing that. We laugh.
It's funny to think Mike Nichols, I know, is not always... he's sort of popularly respected, but he's not... I sense from the film critic community, the smarter film critic community, he's not always respected. Because he's sort of just... he's just urbane. He's just sophisticated.
I think... And the last half of his career is really hit and miss. Yeah, and I think
I don't think he's considered a very kind of cinephilic director. His strong points are not always the ones that are most valued.
Yeah, I've heard him dismissed.
Actors,
I've heard him dismissed a couple of times. Oh, and he was a theater director. It's that's why he's great with actors. That's kind of Virginia Woolf and stuff. You can't write off that aspect.
Which is something. The longer I'm a filmmaker, that's just the more it's just harder to resist that respect. Just like man, actors. It's such a huge part of making a movie, and to see it done well is just infinitely impressive to me.
Yeah, no,
you just can't help it. Look, hey.
You give me the emotional anchor.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I will make up reasons in my head why things are happening the way they're happening if I believe in what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
If I believe the actors.
Yeah. But he's also great at he's always tethered to a sense of wit and a sense of humor, which really speaks to me, I think. Jack Nicholson is always on the edge of making some... There was so much... what's the word for it? Just making faces. He makes so many faces in the movie. He's just pulling faces. At the end of every scene, the camera will linger on him like maybe 3 seconds longer than normal when he makes like one extra little Jack face.
Yeah.
Where he'll like look over there and then pucker his lips or something. It's just like, it's hammy, but it also like, that's Jack.
Yeah. It's pleasurable. Right?
Yeah.
Like you are technically giving us what we're there to see.
Yeah. Because the movie is definitely, it's like half about him.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a very old fashioned handling of a star where it's like, that's how they're marketing it. They're marketing it through Jack Nicholson, and you're watching it because Jack Nicholson is Jack Nicholson. Like, he keeps you in it.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's Tom Berenger turning into a wolf, it'd just be unbearable.
I was trying to
no offense to Tom Berenger, but it's like a different,
You're exactly right. Like, the persona is part of it. And I was trying to figure out who else is even close. Who would you cast?
Oh, now?
In 94, like or 95, there's nobody else who could play that role the way that Nicholson plays it, because it's written towards him, like it plays into his strengths.
It plays into his strengths, and it also, it's the character is kind of it's supposed to be a schlub, so it's like you're having this extremely charismatic guy play a passive schlub who, is more than happy to be kicked while he's down.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, like, could you actually pull it off? Could you cast another actor and then replace him with Nicholson once the transformation kicks in? Like, what if then you're in like Nutty Professor territory?
Yeah,
but that kind
of they could have cast Eddie Murphy,
sure,
and then replaced him. That's a dream movie right there. Eddie Murphy starts out as a book editor, turns into a wolf, and becomes Jack Nicholson. Oh man,
there's
those dream projects.
Jekyll and Hyde together again.
Yeah,
I think we don't see that in, but it plays so much. It plays so much on his persona.
Yeah,
that. When it comes out, when it starts to emerge, it's just like, oh, that's a great idea. Like the self-actualization through curse, through supernatural.
Yeah.
And it also, weirdly, like for me, it fought the idea of the movie being tragic at all. Because if you get to turn into Jack Nicholson, aren't you ahead? Aren't you, like, isn't that an improvement?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I think that's why that's the whole thing. It's like the opposite of the Benicio del Toro Wolf movie, which I haven't seen, it's not good. Well, yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. It's like it's part of what keeps you in the movie and keeps you excited is knowing how exciting it must be to become a wolf. It's painful, and he's scared of it. And at one point he says like, "Oh, I prefer to have a brain tumor than this," but you don't totally believe it. You're like, no, come on.
Yeah, because
you're finally getting to. I don't know what fantasies he's even getting to fulfill other than just not being passive anymore. He's basically winning a battle over passivity.
And that's the other problem with a horror movie or if anyone going expecting a horror movie, you don't get one. Like it's just, it's just not that.
No, I mean it delivers in the end in terms of action sequence and there's some blood but it's so there's like almost like a giallo aspect to that final face off with the. Oh, and we haven't talked about the score. The score is so wonderful. The score is wonderful. The Ennio Morricone is I mean, it's just like I was talking earlier about like what appealed to me, and there was just all these elements of I was savvy enough with movies when I saw it to know that like it was old school. Like what I was watching was like an old school movie. I knew that Mike Nichols was like an old school director, and I knew it was weird that they were like on sets and that there's something very two-dimensional about the way the movie's made. It's pre-CGI. Almost all the effect. I think all the effects are practical.
Yeah, there's a couple of dissolves.
There's dissolve, but the dissolve is the oldest trick in the book. It's like there's so many great kind of like foundational, like basic little flourishes like that.
Yeah.
And then you have the score, which is almost wall to wall.
And trying for a different tone than the movie you're getting, which it's a horror score. It's a proper gothic kind of big, expensive orchestral score.
Yeah.
And it's for a movie about a book editor. Like, it's this weird. Yeah. I guess The Shining.
I love that. I mean, that contrast is perfect. Yeah, to me, that's the kind of contrast that makes me excited in a movie. It's sort of like a giant score, kind of almost. It's not mocking the character, but it's like it's.
It's dwarfing him.
Yeah, it's dwarfing him. It's making you know that what he's going through is bigger than him in some ways. Yeah. Whenever they're the kind of like clunky way they shoot him on his little night escapades as a wolf, they shoot it. I think it's all day for night.
Yeah, I think
they're shooting day for night, and it's very clearly just a stunt double.
Right.
even he's pretty much in focus sometimes, like in a not even a medium wide. You could definitely tell it's like, no, that's a dude in like a wolf.
Yeah,
just like stuff like that.
It's that weird thing.
There's a clunkiness that I liked about it. It's like, oh, that's nice. They're trusting the audience to just sort of go along with this artifice.
Yeah,
they're trusting the audience to kind of handle this artifice. Which now, I don't know if they would do that. I think they would probably take Jack Nicholson's face and
stitch it,
composite it onto the which is whatever.
The artifice. I mean, artifice is the perfect word because the more you see of the makeup, the sillier it ultimately gets. I mean, the contact lenses are not the best, and the fingernails are kind of the talon thing they try to do. Just doesn't work at all. Where it's very clearly like a thimble with a nail stuck on it. It doesn't move like a finger would. But I get it, right? Like after Dracula and Frankenstein, which were these incredible, complex, ornate makeups, to the point where like De Niro has stitches where a surgeon would make the incision instead of the classic.
This is the Branagh.
Where it's all logical. It's all driven by, if you did this is what it would look like. And it turns out it looks horrible. It looks like a guy with a lot of scars.
It's a bummer. Yeah. It's a bummer to watch. Like a realistic version of Frankenstein.
Yeah. And here what they do is the kind of 30s idea to make up. There's a lot of spirit gum, there's a lot of latex, there's a lot of appliances. And they don't look right, but towards the end they start to work. I couldn't figure out if it wore me down. Yeah. Or if the contrast between the stunt doubles and Nicholson and Spader in final makeup is like, you kind of can't.
Oh yeah. Well, because it's half the time when they're in the makeup, they're shooting at a high frame rate and it's all slow motion and there's wall to wall loud scoring. I mean, it's all artifice, so it's like you just go. It all fits.
That's what I mean. Like it kind of wins you over.
Oh yeah.
Even if you're like, it's not camp exactly.
No, not exactly.
But it's
close,
getting there. Right? Yeah. And then at the very end, there's that kind of weird kabuki moment where he pulls away from Pfeiffer and realizes he sees his hand, and it is silent movie acting. Like it's big. Yeah. Even for Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And it was like this time around, I was really fascinated by those choices. Like, no, this is like they played this emotionally. This was supposed to play.
Yeah, and the way they do the final transitions, where you realize at the end, spoiler alert, Michelle Pfeiffer has also become a wolf.
Everyone's a wolf.
It's the way they do it is so simply, done. It's basically a series of dissolves. Yeah, with a nice little there's like a kind of wistful theme that comes in, and then they'll dissolve to like when they finally show Nicholson's transformation fully to a wolf, it's clearly just like almost like a puppet.
It is
wolf.
A puppet,
like a puppet wolf.
I'm pretty sure it's the same one we see at the beginning too. Like it's supposed to be a different wolf, but
it's very clearly not a real wolf.
We built one wolf. And that's the thing that, to go back 13, 14 years, American Werewolf nails. When you finally see the wolf, the final form, when you see this monster, it's not right. Like it looks like a living thing. But the proportions are wrong, and its chest is huge, and it doesn't look like a dog. It doesn't look like a bear. You finally understand, which maybe there's another movie that I'd never seen, but when I saw it, it felt like the culmination of every movie where somebody gets attacked by what is very clearly a man in a wolf suit, and then says, "I don't know what it was. It was this thing. It was like a rabid dog or a bear." David even says it. David Naughton even says it in the film in American Werewolf. And when you see it, it's just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It wouldn't look like a wolf. Yeah. And so when we see this really expensive animatronic, I assume, of a wolf that isn't quite alive, it's insulting. It's like, you could do that. We've seen this done. You just hired the wrong team to fabricate it. Or like in 1994, I don't think he could have gotten away with CG full creation.
No, I don't think so. I don't think he would have either. I think
that's true.
That's just not where Mike Nichols' passions or probably attentions fully lie.
Even the effects in What Planet Are You From in 2000 are very, very practical. Yeah. Glowing lights and stuff like that.
Well, and I just don't, even the practical effects themselves, I don't know if he's
paying the closest attention.
I don't think it's it's just like, there's only so many things a director can care about. He's not James Cameron. I think at a certain part of the day, he's like, nah, it's good enough. Yeah, there's a lot of good enough in the makeup. There's like a lot of good enough.
As long as Nicholson's eyes, his eyebrows read. I think that's what you want.
Yeah, and there's that faith. There's that faith in the movie star and the faith in the old-fashioned kind of charms of movies. So maybe some of the faith is misplaced, but I still respond to it. I still respond to the artifice. I think that's why I respect it. It's just kind of there's something just kind of fundamentally goofy about the movie.
Yeah, I think it's a great. I think I was really happy that you chose it because it's a film. But nobody talks about it. Like it's it's on Blu-ray, but it's forgotten. Yeah, and it's sort of consigned to that weird little space of that happened. That was a movie that was released by a major studio.
Yeah,
and I don't know when this is going to be released in sequence with the other stuff I've done on this trip. But I talked to Aaron Hillis about Ishtar, and again, like it's 1987, Sony, Columbia Pictures just not knowing what to do with the film that was delivered to them.
Yeah.
And it's Elaine May as opposed to Mike Nichols, but there's that weird connection of these two people who were working in genre without working in genre, because Ishtar isn't a thriller.
No, but it's kind of an action movie at some point.
Well, it opens with a proper chase sequence.
Yeah.
Like it opens with a guy getting murdered. That's the example I kept thinking of was Foul Play. Which, like, it plays. That's
the one with the albino?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was on cable a lot.
Beware the Dwarf.
Yeah.
Right? And all that stuff that should be serious is played seriously, and all the stuff that should be funny is played for comedy, and you get this constant interruption of another genre barging in. Wolf is a transformation movie that takes place over the entire film, where it just sort of mutates into whatever its final form will be.
Yeah.
And it turns out that it's a tragic romance. But maybe not so much, because, again, the ending does leave the door open.
That's what I like. There's a bittersweetness to the ending. I mean, I think you're relieved because in some weird way you think they'll reunite as wolves.
Yeah, sure.
I wish they had shown that.
Yeah.
I wish they had shown Michelle Pfeiffer's full transformation to wolf, and then the two wolves walk up to each other and like they're kind of nervous and stuff.
It is
kissing a little bit.
I assume they came up with that solution in post just because it makes like the series of dissolves and figuring out how to do it.
Right.
Because it feels like nothing else in the movie.
Yeah.
Like it just we need it. It's over. What do we do?
Yeah.
How do we go out? You can't just like all the Wolfman.
Well,
movies,
he did. Those shots though. Unless they did pickups. They have very specific shots of like Michelle Pfeiffer's
with the eyes,
face, moving, smiling towards it. It's very,
yeah. And of course we haven't even mentioned Richard Jenkins yet, who is so weirdly great as this exhausted, normal person.
Yeah.
You can't even refer to like he's a detective, he's figuring it all out, but no, he's the normal guy. He's the guy who keeps missing everything. And he's just becoming more and more frustrated, which I love. I love the humanity in his performance. It's just like, God damn it, people aren't telling me the truth, and I just can't figure out why.
Yeah, there's no illusion in the movie that the cops have any kind of intelligence, any native intelligence at all. They're just really looked down on by all these hoity-toity rich people and book editors.
They've been handled for decades, For generations, we've been paying their kind to leave us alone, which almost kind of plays into the whole werewolf thing, like the idea that there are these ancient truces in the world that, not in this movie, but the larger culture of werewolf stuff is, don't stay off the moors. Why? Oh, just do it.
Yeah.
Just, when the old guy in the pub tells you that, just maybe listen to him. They're in the pub for a reason.
Yeah. And I guess the joy, it's something with Wolf is like they're bringing... Yeah, the interesting contrast is that they're bringing something from the ancient world into a world that has no attachment to it anymore.
Yeah, and even a world that is soon to be gone, like high-end book publishing.
Right.
They don't know that yet. Like, nobody in the movie knows what's coming.
Well, they kind of seem to know it a little bit with the Christopher Plummer character. They know that it's all kind of
changing.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk of conglomerates and.
But I can't imagine Mike Nichols ever thought that publishing would be starving itself out in these decisions.
No, I don't think he...
They're just, everything's being bought.
I don't think he saw that far on the horizon.
Yeah. It's such a strange film, because it occupies this really weird space of transition in everything, including someone briefly trying to say, well, horror movies don't have to be about monsters.
Yeah.
This doesn't have to be a horror movie. This is your werewolf movie, but it's not your werewolf movie.
Yeah.
And I think as a result, it's unique. It occupies a really weird place.
Yeah.
So then the final question is always the same on the show, which is is there anything in it that you have used in your own work or would like to, or is there something you keep in your is there part of it that you've just sort of kept in your pocket all this time? Does it stay with you?
Does it stay with me? It definitely stays with me.
Like artistically, is there something? Was there a scene in The Men where Josh Lucas,
I mean, honestly, it is that kind of sense of, and I think you can see it in The Men, and hopefully you'll see it in, God willing, any future work I'm able to make. It's that faith in artifice, and that faith in the contrasts of a, for example, a big score against a book editor. Just imposing large kind of aesthetic elements onto a kind of core narrative that you wouldn't necessarily expect to attract those elements. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, actually.
Yeah, but it's everything. It's the score. It's the dissolves. It's the strong music cues. The kind of, even some of the kind of stagey wooden acting of extras and stuff. Sometimes it all kind of fits together. I mean, I think you're opening yourself up as a filmmaker to just being ridiculed for that, because people will think it's a mistake, and maybe in some ways it is. It's Mike Nichols just not connecting to how the world really works.
Right.
But that to me that's Mike Nichols. He didn't connect. I think probably totally. I mean, I think he probably spent a lot of time in a limousine and or whatever, and didn't and that comes across in the movie, and so in that way it's like it's an expression of who he is. He's not really going against who he is when he's making the film.
Yeah.
It's still staying true to him, even if it seems bogus.
Yeah.
Which is maybe the ultimate biggest cop out you could ever propose for as a film critic.
Yeah. But that is the stock answer in an uncomfortable situation at a film festival. And somebody comes up to you and they say, "How do you like my film?" And you're like, a friend of mine said his fallback was always, "Oh, only you could have made that." That is so you.
That is so you.
Yeah.
That garbage movie.
Yes.
But I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything specific, but the whole thing I feel like I take with me.
That's great.
Yeah, it's so weird. I really enjoyed it again, watching it again. I was like, yeah, still got it. There's definitely some banter between him and Michelle Pfeiffer that does not work. She's so great in the movie. I mean, she's just such a great actress who, I don't know where she is now. I mean, I wish she were
producing a lot. Apparently, she's just sort of working on stuff, getting stuff together.
I wish she were in more movies. She's awesome. But
it's weird too, because she is she's not above it exactly, but she is self-aware in a way that maybe none of the other actors is.
Yeah.
In Wolf, she knows exactly what her role is within the film, and she's sort of playing into it.
And she's given in some ways of any actor the most clunkers in terms of lines, I'd say. Kind of like, oh well, yes, there is a price to pay. She does a lot of responding that doesn't quite make sense. It's a lot of, she raises the stakes a lot, but it doesn't. Well,
she's delivering the movie's wisdom.
Exactly.
I think it's because she's supposed to embody normalcy, normalcy and desire, and she's the object rather than the person to be desired.
And she's damaged.
Yeah, which was standard for the 90s, right?
Yeah.
You can't just have a nice person who is comfortable in herself and
oh no.
Okay, you have to
do drugs.
A deep flaw.
Yeah.
I like to imagine it was just a character from Scarface.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't leave, went to New York, left Florida, got out clean.
Wouldn't it be great if that was the way she approached the characters? Or if that's the way she approached all characters? She's like, I'm going to just take the character from whoever I played in Grease 2, and I'm going to bring that into the Age of Innocence.
She's a time. That would be so fantastic.
Yeah.
Unadjuncted.
The Pfeiffer-verse.
Yeah, just, well, this character, it never comes up in the movie, but she's a time traveler.
Yeah.
And this is later in her adventure.
This is just how I get into the role. She sounds like a loon.
I kind of love that. All right, now I have a better theory. We're going to go with this.
Age of Innocence, if we could talk again about a movie, I would talk about that.
All right, I'll book you. We're bound to do the order again at some point.
That's a tougher one, because you can't look down on it as much as Wolf.
Well, you don't have to look down on Wolf.
No, that's true.
He just wants to be loved.
It's just easier to handle in a way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. The stakes are lower.
Yeah.
My thanks to John Magary, whose terrific film The Mend is just waiting for you to discover it on iTunes, Vudu, Amazon Prime, Vimeo On Demand, and Netflix in the US. If anyone feels like producing a Blu-ray release, I'm happy to provide liner notes. You can find John on Twitter at John Magary, all one word, and you can find Wolf on DVD and Blu-ray from Sony Pictures Home Entertainment. It's also available for sale and rental on iTunes. It's, well, as you heard, it's something. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com. You can also find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, S-E-M-Cast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. If you feel like leaving a review on iTunes, that would be very kind of you. This week's call sign is, I'm just marking my territory. Thanks for listening.